Okay, so this is actually a video for real estate agents, and it's directed at listing agents. So I've been a lender for 15 years, in the top 1% for quite a while now. Do a lot of loans, okay? The reason I'm doing this video is because a lot of times listing agents, they don't know what to ask a lender when they get that pre-approval letter. So I'm gonna guide you guys based on what I've seen on my end, the best way to protect your seller when you're looking at pre-approval letters, okay? So, number one, the pre-approval letter. Okay, you want to look for some key information on that pre-approval letter. The company name, the NMLS number. Okay, you want to make sure that the lender is licensed in the state that you're in. There's a lot of people looking in multiple states right now, and it's very possible that someone could have gotten pre-approved for, let's say, Ohio, but now they're looking in New York. Okay, it's a different ball of wax. So you guys always want to be looking for, your state that the property's in and that the lender's licensed in it and they have the state licensing there and that state is referenced. Number one, okay, because property taxes, they're very different based on different states, as are closing costs, okay? Number two, I would totally Google the lender. Google their name, the company they work for, and the word reviews. If you do that, you will see how they traditionally treat clients and closings. If you look at it and it says, we closed 3 weeks late, they bait and switched us, I mean, that's a risk to your seller. Right? Your seller doesn't want to close 3 weeks late. Your seller doesn't want to deal with a buyer getting to the closing table and finding out they're getting ripped off. That's not good for the seller. It's not good for the buyer. So I would be less hesitant, I would be more hesitant to, work with an offer where the lender clearly isn't going to perform. Right? Because that's what you guys are looking for. You're looking for a lender who can perform. And that's what you want to see in the reviews. You want to see reviews of like, oh my God, they were amazing. They closed quicker. I love them. They told me the truth. That's what you want, because a buyer who is tied to a lender that's educating them, communicating, and delivering is more likely to close. Right? So let's talk about a couple ways that deals fall apart that's totally the lender's fault. Okay. Structuring. The lender doesn't know how to structure the loan, there's a good chance it won't close, right? That's why we've heard for years, most real estate agents do not like call centers. Since I'm out of state, for many of my transactions, I'm constantly having to call real estate agents saying, no, I'm not a call center. And the reason they feel that way is because there's been a lot of call center deals over the years that were structured poorly that have failed, okay? So if the lender's not structuring properly, it can fail. Number two, and you can find this on the pre-approval letter, what is the date on the pre-approval letter? We're in a very volatile rate market right now. So if that pre-approval letter is from October of last year, whoo, oh my goodness, rates are a different world. They may not qualify now. When the lender talks to them about the rate, they're gonna have payment shock. They could back out over that. A lot of red flags. Also, a lender trick that's pretty dirty is they'll put a really low rate on that pre-approval. And most buyers automatically assume that the rate on the pre-approval is the rate they'll get. They don't recognize that unless it's locked, it's not real. So if you guys are looking at the pre-approval letter and you're like, whoa, 3%? With an APR of 3.01? Guys, we all know that's way too low. That's not what they're gonna get. But that buyer may think that's what they're gonna get. So if the buyer thinks that's what they're gonna get, you accept their offer, they find out the rates are in the, fives, right? It's another way the deal could blow up, okay? So you wanna watch out for that. Bait and switching is a huge one, so that's why I say go to the reviews, and definitely making sure the lender's licensed in the state. I actually had a client recently who we were going over his pre-approval, and he's like, hey Jen, this other lender just qualified me for $175,000 more. And I fully underwrite all my pre-approvals, and I saw his debt tank. I'm like, no way in hell, right? He's like, no, he said they could, they did. I'm like, cool, send me his pre-approval letter. Okay, guys, the pre-approval letter didn't even list a state. I looked up the guy's NMLS number, which should be on the pre-approval. It's very important that you guys know that lenders who have NMLS IDs, that's like our state licensing, we have to put it on the pre-approval letter. If it's not on there, it's a red flag. And this guy wasn't even licensed in the state that he was giving that guy a pre-approval for. He was just gonna give him the pre-approval, hope he gets into contract, and then switch him to another lender and get some sort of kickback. Crazy, right? Crazy? And then imagine the seller who's like, well, this says they qualify for 775. They don't qualify for that. The lender never did any of the work either. Okay, so that type of stuff does happen, as disgusting as it is. I wish there were better safeguards in our industry for sure, but just as in any industry, you're going to have good people and you're going to have bad people and you're going to have some slime. So you just want to make sure that your seller doesn't have to deal with the bad and the slime. Okay, so what else? I would suggest that you call the lender. I love it when listing agents call me because I can brag, basically. I can be like, hey, yeah, they're fully underwritten. Yes, everything's done. I just need, the title work and the appraisal and we're good to go. Like, I love that. If a lender doesn't want to talk to you or won't talk to you, that's a red flag. Okay. Now look, if you're asking stuff like how much money does the buyer have, that's inappropriate. Okay, it's your job to make sure that we have qualified them and that they're in a good position and they can do what they're saying they can do by the contract. We absolutely cannot tell you more about their finances or how to negotiate against them because we could lose our licenses. Also, it's our duty to the buyer to protect them, and that wouldn't be protecting them. And it's not necessary, right? If you're negotiating, you want to negotiate with the buyer's agent. So I want to be clear on that because sometimes agents get mad and they're like, well, why won't you tell me if they have more money and if they can pay over appraised value? And it's because you're asking me to negotiate against my client. Can't do that. Okay, so yes, call us. And one of the questions you want to ask is, when do you order the appraisal? That is a key question, because if you're trying to do like a 20-day, even a 30-day close, I can't talk. If the lender doesn't order the appraisal for 10 days, that can be a problem in a lot of markets. In a lot of markets, it might take 15 days to get the appraisal back. So if they're ordering it on day 10, you're not getting it back till day 25. You're closing on day 30. If the appraisal's not perfect, if there's any delays, you have problems, right? We always order the appraisal day 1, regardless of the loan type. That's been my policy since day 1. A lot of lenders don't like to do that because in order for a lender to charge a buyer for the appraisal upfront, like an upfront credit card, we have to have disclosures out and signed. Okay, that's the only time they can take credit card information. So a lot of lenders wait until they have disclosures out, the buyer signed the disclosure in order to order the appraisal, and that can cause delays. If it takes a couple days for disclosures to get out, if the buyer's traveling or they don't understand it and they want to go through a lender, you can easily end up with a lender who's ordering that appraisal pretty late, which can put the whole transaction behind. And if you've got a seller who's packing boxes and getting ready to move, that is the last thing you want. Okay, so I would always be asking, on what day do you order the appraisal? Very important. The next thing is, how fast can you close? Okay, now sometimes there's a couple big name lenders where they'll literally say, we need you to make the contract longer because we can't close on time. That is not a great situation, okay? So you want to make sure the lender can close on time. The other thing that you definitely want to ask the lender is, have you verified the buyer's documents? Now, if I'm saying they're fully underwritten and approved by our underwriter, that means that we've already have a credit report. We already have all their documentation. We've reviewed their documentation. I've got full verification of employments. I got everything you can think of. That's how it got to a human underwriter. But if someone's just saying, oh, we looked at their credit, we did their app. I don't know. Here's the thing. So if someone just has an application for a buyer, that's the buyer's reported information. With lending, there's so many rules. It's like, if someone makes commission, it's a 2-year average. If someone's hourly and works less than 40 hours, it's a 2-year average. There's a lot of work that the lender has to do in many situations in order to make sure that income is bulletproof and that they qualify. Okay, and unfortunately, there's some lenders that don't want to put in that level of work until they know it's a real deal. Until they know they're going to get the moolah, they don't want to do the work. So you want to try to hope that they're working with lenders that are fully approving them. Okay, now if you can't steer. So let's be clear about that. You can't look at the approval and be like, this is garbage, call Jen Beeston, this is trash. You can't do that. You can say, hey, we want to make, in order to accept, we really want them fully underwritten, or can you have them talk to 5 lenders, 10 lenders, anything that's more solid than this. If the lender's not licensed in the state, it's not crazy for you guys to ask them to have a lender licensed in the state. That's what needs to happen in order for the transaction to actually go through. So, or bring to the attention of the buyer's agent, hey, like, I don't know if you looked up this lender, but his reviews are terrible. I'm concerned this won't close. Because as the listing agent, you do have a responsibility to the seller. And, I think about the sellers a lot during the transaction because I've been a seller and it's stressful, man. Your emotions get all heightened. Like, I'm the worst seller. My real estate agent kind of hates me for it because I'm like the worst, because they're like, Jen, the buyer wants $20. And I'm like, no, right? You guys are already dealing with the mood swings of the seller. The last thing you need is a lender who can't perform, right? Because if you have a lender who's saying, oh, I'm going to get docs next week, you're going back to the seller saying, he said he's going to get docs next week, and then they don't come. I'll get them next week. You're going back to the seller. Just think about it. It's horrible. It's just horrible for you. It's horrible for them. It's horrible for everyone. So by having these calls with the lenders up front, making sure that they're actually licensed in the state, making sure that they actually pre-approved the buyer, you definitely can put your seller in a better position. So if you're a listing agent and you have any other good ideas, please contribute them, throw them in the comments. If you guys have questions, or if you're looking for a lender, you're like, I need a good lender who will fully underwrite everyone. Give me a call. I'm licensed everywhere except for Utah and Rhode Island. Everywhere else, I'm licensed and doing business, and I would love to help out. So I hope this has been helpful. Thanks for watching.